Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 2022 Augmented Enterprise Summit. A lot of things have changed. Names have changed. It's a whole different world from where we were in 2019, as most of us know. And so this, first and foremost, I want to say thank you to each one of you and to your companies for investing in the time to physically come here. We spend a lot of time on Zoom. It's super efficient. We can do a lot of things in that world, but it's wonderful to see, and I don't want to discount the fact that coming together in person is also a challenge for everybody, whether it's economic, logistics, everything else. So just take a moment to say thank you to all of you for being here. Very much so. So in the spirit of this, as I was getting ready to do the chair intro, I was trying to think of like, what could I talk about? And I was inspired by a recent article I read on LinkedIn from RealWare. And many years ago in this very city here in San Diego, I used to be part of a group called Uncle Sam's Canoe Club. That's what we affectionately called it. And I spent some time out there in the water, and I've actually been in a boat from San Diego to Honolulu. And it got me thinking about that. And if you've done some, depending on which Google search you trust, there's about 2,700 or 2,272 miles between San Diego and Honolulu. I started thinking about, okay, well, modern ships, how long does it take them to get from San Diego to Honolulu? Someone found this little image. I took the median, the middle average of how long it takes, how fast these boats can go, and how long does it take to get there? And this is what I came up with. Now, the next part, to create some context to where I'm going, I don't want to create a controversy first running out of the bag. If you're willing to raise your hand and tell me that you can remember this historical event of landing on the moon, yeah, if you're willing, appreciate it. 53 years ago, we did this. And when we did, we went 238,900 miles from the surface of the planet to the moon. Now, here's the part that gets interesting. At that time, 53 years ago, it only took them 102 hours or so to do that. So if you take that context, what stood out to me relative to what we're doing here today, and part of the theme that I want everybody to keep in mind, is their whole article was about telemedicine, connectivity, getting together and bridging this gap. That as much as we're together, as many cell phones are sitting in this room that we can utilize and have all this information, we're still very much apart. There's still a lot of distance to go. There's still a lot of things that happen. And so I want to encourage everybody as we go through the rest of the day to kind of take that context of saying, yeah, we can get somewhere quick, but it still takes a long time to get certain places. And we're not quite as far along as we thought we were. And by the way, if you're looking up there and you see the RORO ship, I didn't know what that was either. I thought ruh-roh, like what does that mean? It wasn't quite the same, but that's a roll-on, roll-off ship for cars. Again, pretty important in the world of supply chain and things of that nature. And so as we move forward, I want you to consider a couple of things to keep in mind as an undercurrent as we go forward. What's happening is amazing. Back to connection, back to why that article is important to RealWare and the point they were trying to make was what happens if you get hurt on that ship? What happens if you have an emergency? What happens if you need somebody in real time, in person? How do you make that happen? You can't call an ambulance to come 109 hours by sea to come pick you up and take care of you or anything in between that. So connection is a big deal. And I'm not talking about Wi-Fi or buffering or anything like that. I'm talking about the connection happening right now that can happen at all of these seats, the person sitting next to you, you and I, those two over there, what it means to physically come together and be in real time, in person, and how that makes a difference in all the things we do. So listening to how technology, what is happening in the last 3 years, if we had the same, I went back and listened to the opening remarks from back then, sounds very similar, but man, what a difference the last 3 years have made in terms of really understanding why connection is valuable. And the other part is humanity. I want you to consider humanity as you listen to this, because at the end of the day, this all impacts you as people, the end users, and all of the good, the bad, the ugly, the wonderful, the not so wonderful of humanity comes with this connection and what comes through it. And it also applies to helping people and doing something for them. If you're that person in that boiler room on that tanker ship, and you just had an accident and the very functionality of your hand is at stake, connectivity and human connection is probably pretty dang important to you. And at the last point I want to make is we're then challenged because and I'm going to pardon my French real quick, there's some beautiful, badass people out there making some incredible technology. On a daily basis, it all gets reset. And it's just overwhelming in some regard, but it leaves us with a pressing question. And that is, so now what do we do? We recognize the need. We recognize the challenge that we have to bring people together. All this data, all this awareness, and what are we going to do with it now? And how do we implement that? what do we get out of this, and how do we make sure that we make the right decisions, which I believe you're going to see throughout the sessions today starts to answer that question. And so as I wrapped up, as I mentioned, I was stationed here many years ago, 1997. I remember when we used to go to Padres games. Any local Padre fans, congratulations. Chargers games, events, things of that nature. We used to go to a place called Jack Murphy Stadium. And in 1997, the rights were purchased, and there was this company I'd never heard of called Qualcomm, who took over and said, hey, we're going to name it this, and it became the Q. And at the time, they were a burgeoning company, and now they've become a giant, and they're a big presence in our world. And they represent the first speaker of today. We're going to have Brian Vogelsang from Qualcomm coming to talk to you about Enterprise XR. And with that, looking forward to the rest of the day. Thank you for being here. And here we go.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it, man.